Ryan Carter was no stranger to hard work or heartache. At 32, he carried the weight of 2 jobs, countless responsibilities, and the lingering grief of losing his wife, Claire, 2 years earlier. Their son, Jake, was 7 now, a bright-eyed whirlwind of energy who reminded him every day of the woman he'd loved and lost. But even with Jake's laughter lighting up their small apartment, Ryan couldn't shake the ache of absence or the exhaustion that came with trying to fill both parental roles on his own. Their home was modest, a cramped 1-bedroom tucked into the corner of a quiet suburban neighborhood. The walls were adorned with Jake's crayon drawings, and mismatched furniture filled the tiny living room. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, a patchwork of memories old and new, stitched together by resilience and love. Ryan did everything he could to give Jake a stable life, working long hours delivering packages during the day and cleaning office buildings at night. Between shifts, he squeezed in time for parent-teacher conferences, grocery runs, and bedtime stories. He didn't have room for anything else. Not hobbies, not relationships, not even rest. One chilly evening, as Ryan pulled his delivery van into the driveway of a sprawling estate on the outskirts of town, he noticed something unusual. 3 young girls, triplets, judging by their identical faces, stood on the doorstep, pleading with a sharply dressed man inside. The man ignored them, shutting the door firmly and leaving the girls visibly distraught. Curious and concerned, Ryan approached cautiously. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently. The oldest of the 3, Sophia, turned to him with tear-streaked cheeks. "We just wanted to see our uncle," she whispered, clutching her sister's hands tightly. "But he won't let us in." Ryan frowned, glancing at the closed door. "Do you know him?" "Your uncle. He's rich," Lily chimed in, her voice trembling. "Mommy said he could help us if we needed it." Emma, the youngest, added quietly, "But he doesn't care about us." Ryan's heart sank. Whatever their story was, it clearly involved pain and rejection. Kneeling down to their level, he offered a reassuring smile. "Well, I'm here now, and I care. Why don't you tell me what's going on?" As the girls explained their situation, they'd been abandoned by their parents and were living in foster care, desperate for support from distant relatives. Ryan felt a wave of compassion wash over him. These children needed someone to believe in them, to show them they weren't alone. Despite his own struggles, he knew he couldn't turn away. "Come on," he said finally, holding out his hand. "You can stay with me and Jake tonight. We'll figure things out tomorrow." Sophia hesitated, looking at her sisters before nodding slowly. "Okay, thank you." That night, as Ryan tucked the triplets into makeshift beds alongside Jake's bunk bed, he couldn't help but wonder how their lives had become intertwined. Little did he know, this act of kindness would change all their lives forever. The next morning, Ryan woke before dawn, as usual, to prepare for his delivery route. The apartment was quiet except for the soft breathing of 5 sleeping children. He paused in the doorway of Jake's room, watching the triplets, Sophia, Lily, and Emma, curled up together on blankets spread across the floor. Jake lay sprawled in his bed above them, one arm dangling off the side. Despite the chaos of the previous night, there was an undeniable sense of peace in the room, a fragile but promising start to their new chapter. As the sun rose, the house came alive with activity. Jake groggily rubbed his eyes and peeked over the edge of his bunk bed. "Dad, why are there so many people in our room?" Ryan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "They're part of the family now, at least for now. We'll figure it out as we go." Jake frowned, clearly unsure about sharing his space. But when Sophia shyly handed him a drawing she'd made during breakfast, a picture of all 5 of them holding hands, he grinned despite himself. "Cool," he said, pinning it to the wall beside his other artwork. "Thanks." Over the following days, Ryan worked tirelessly to adjust to their expanded household. He rearranged furniture to create more sleeping space, borrowed extra mattresses from neighbors, and scoured thrift stores for clothes and supplies. Money was tighter than ever, but Ryan refused to let financial strain dampen their spirits. Instead, he focused on teaching the triplets practical skills like cooking simple meals, folding laundry, and helping around the house. It wasn't just about easing his workload. It was about giving them a sense of purpose and belonging. One afternoon, as they planted vegetables in the small backyard garden, Lily looked up at Ryan thoughtfully. "Do you think we'll have to leave soon? Like, go back to foster care?" Ryan knelt beside her, brushing dirt from his hands. "Not if I can help it. You're safe here with me, with Jake. We're a team now." Her eyes widened with relief, and she threw her arms around him. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. Call me Ryan," he replied with a smile. "And don't thank me yet, we've still got weeds to pull." Life became chaotic but joyful as the family settled into their new routine. Jake quickly warmed to the triplets, taking on the role of big brother with surprising maturity. He taught them how to ride bikes, helped them practice reading, and even shared his favorite comic books. In return, the girls adored him, often giggling as they chased him around the apartment or begged him to play hide and seek. For Ryan, seeing his son embrace this new responsibility filled him with pride and a renewed sense of hope. The laughter echoing through their tiny home reminded him of the joy Claire had brought into their lives. Though her absence still lingered, the triplets' presence softened the edges of his grief, filling the void with warmth and love. But the challenges were far from over. Feeding 5 growing children stretched Ryan's budget to its limits. Some nights, he skipped dinner entirely, claiming he wasn't hungry while secretly nibbling on crackers after everyone else had gone to bed. His worn-out shoes developed holes, and his jacket grew threadbare, but he never complained. To Ryan, providing for the kids, even if it meant sacrificing his own comfort, was worth every hardship. Neighbors began noticing the changes. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who lived down the hall, knocked on their door one evening carrying a casserole dish. "Heard you've got your hands full these days," she said with a kind smile. "Thought you might need a little help." Ryan accepted the meal gratefully, inviting her inside. As the triplets eagerly introduced themselves, Mrs. Thompson's expression softened. "You're doing something remarkable, Ryan. Not everyone would open their home like this." "I'm just doing what anyone else would do," Ryan replied humbly, though deep down, he knew it wasn't entirely true. Many people would have walked away or turned the girls over to social services without a second thought. But Ryan couldn't imagine abandoning them, no matter how difficult things got. Still, doubts lingered at the edges of his mind. Friends and acquaintances occasionally voiced concerns. "You're already stretched thin, Ryan," his coworker Mark warned during a lunch break. "Taking in 3 kids? That's a lot of responsibility." "I know," Ryan admitted, staring into his coffee cup. "But what choice did I have? They needed someone, and I couldn't say no." Mark shook his head, impressed despite himself. "You're a better man than I am, buddy." As weeks passed, the bond between Ryan, Jake, and the triplets grew stronger. Each day brought new challenges. Arguments over toys, spilled milk, mismatched socks, but also countless moments of laughter and connection. One evening, as they gathered around the kitchen table for dinner, Emma looked up at Ryan with wide eyes. "Are we really staying here forever?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you stay. No matter what happens, you'll always have a place with us." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, and she reached across the table to hug him. "You're the best dad ever." The comment caught Ryan off guard, but he hugged her back tightly. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means a lot." Jake grinned mischievously, nudging Sophia. "Guess you're stuck with us now." Sophia laughed, throwing a crumpled napkin at him. "Good thing you're fun, Jake." Their playful banter filled the room, a stark contrast to the uncertainty looming in the background. For now, though, they were safe together, and that was enough. As the weeks turned into months, the cracks in Ryan's carefully constructed world began to show. While his heart was full, his wallet and his energy were stretched thinner than ever. Providing for 5 growing children meant constant sacrifices. Cheaper groceries, patched-up clothes, and sleepless nights spent worrying about how to keep the lights on. Despite his best efforts, the weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a storm cloud threatening to break. One evening, after an especially grueling day of deliveries, Ryan returned home to find Jake and the triplets huddled around the kitchen table, whispering urgently. When he walked in, they fell silent, guilt written all over their faces. "What's going on?" Ryan asked, setting his keys on the counter. Jake hesitated before speaking. We wanted to surprise you, so we tried making dinner. But Ryan followed his son's gaze to the stove, where a charred pot sat abandoned. Smoke still lingered in the air, and the faint smell of burnt macaroni filled the room. Sophia looked close to tears. "We didn't mean to ruin it. We just wanted to help." Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. The gesture wasn't one of frustration but of exhaustion. He couldn't muster the energy to be upset. Instead, he forced a smile. "It's okay, guys. I appreciate the effort. Let's order pizza tonight." "Huh." The kids cheered, momentarily forgetting the stress that hung over the household. But Ryan knew the truth. Pizza delivery fees were another expense they couldn't afford. He'd have to skip meals tomorrow, or maybe even the next day, to make up for it. The financial strain wasn't the only challenge looming overhead. News of Ryan's selfless act had spread through the neighborhood, drawing both admiration and skepticism. Some neighbors praised him as a hero, dropping off donated clothes or homemade meals. Others whispered behind closed doors, questioning whether he was truly capable of caring for 5 children on his own. One afternoon, a knock at the door interrupted their usual Saturday routine. Standing outside was a woman in a crisp suit, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Carter? I'm Ms. Bennett from Child Protective Services. May I come in?" Ryan's stomach dropped. He ushered her inside, offering her a seat at the cluttered kitchen table while the kids played quietly in the living room. "Is everything okay?" he asked, trying to mask his unease. Ms. Bennett smiled politely but firmly. "I'm here to assess the living situation. There's been some concern about your ability to provide for 5 children given your current circumstances." Ryan clenched his fists under the table, forcing himself to remain calm. "I understand the concerns, ma'am, but these kids, they're my family now. I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe and happy." "I believe you," Ms. Bennett replied, her tone softening slightly. "But we need to ensure long-term stability. Do you have any plans for additional income? Or perhaps alternative arrangements if things become too overwhelming?" Ryan swallowed hard, knowing she had a point. His current setup was far from ideal, but giving up the triplets wasn't an option. "I'm working on it," he said firmly. "And I've got support from friends and neighbors. These kids aren't going anywhere." Ms. Bennett nodded, jotting notes onto her clipboard. "We'll revisit this in a few weeks. In the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need resources or assistance." After she left, Ryan sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. The threat of losing the triplets terrified him, not because of what others might think, but because of what it would do to them. They'd already lost so much. He couldn't bear the thought of taking away the stability they'd finally found. Just when Ryan thought things couldn't get worse, the millionaire whose estate the triplets had approached reappeared. One evening, as Ryan pulled into the driveway after work, a sleek black car idled nearby. A sharply dressed man stepped out, flanked by 2 assistants. It was Mr. Whitmore, the girl's estranged uncle. "Mr. Carter," Whitmore said smoothly, his voice dripping with condescension. "I hear you've taken in my nieces. How noble of you." Ryan crossed his arms, standing protectively in front of the doorway. "They're not your nieces. You turned them away, remember?" Whitmore smirked, unfazed. "Ah yes, a regrettable oversight, but I've reconsidered. I intend to adopt them, give them the life they deserve." Ryan's jaw tightened. "The life they deserve? You don't even know them." "And you do," Whitmore countered, raising an eyebrow. "Tell me, Mr. Carter, how exactly do you plan to provide for 5 children on your salary? Clothes? Education? Medical expenses? You can barely afford this rundown apartment." Each word cut deep, striking at the fears Ryan tried so hard to ignore. But he refused to back down. "Money doesn't make someone a parent. Love does. And I love those girls like they're my own." Whitmore's expression darkened. "Be careful, Mr. Carter. This isn't a battle you can win. If you force my hand, I'll take legal action, and trust me, you won't stand a chance against my lawyers." With that, he turned and climbed back into his car, leaving Ryan seething with anger and fear. The millionaire's words echoed in his mind long after the taillights disappeared down the street. Was he fighting a losing battle? Could he really protect the girls from someone with endless resources and power? That night, Ryan gathered the kids in the living room for a serious conversation. "Listen up," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Some people are going to try to tell us we can't stay together. But no matter what happens, I want you to know, you're my family. Always." Sophia hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "We don't want to leave, Ryan. Please don't let him take us." "I won't," Ryan promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Not without a fight. The days that followed were tense. Ryan reached out to a local lawyer recommended by a neighbor, explaining their situation and seeking advice. To his relief, the lawyer agreed to take on their case pro bono, recognizing the importance of keeping the triplets in a loving home. Meanwhile, Ryan rallied support from the community, sharing their story with anyone who would listen. Neighbors organized fundraisers, strangers donated money online, and local news outlets picked up the tale of the struggling single dad who refused to give up on 3 abandoned girls. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Ryan knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't back down without a fight. These children had changed his life in ways he never expected, teaching him the true meaning of family. And he would do whatever it took to ensure they stayed together, for better or worse. The custody battle loomed like a storm cloud over Ryan's life. Every day felt like a tug-of-war between hope and fear, hope that justice would prevail, and fear that wealth and power might outweigh love and sacrifice in the eyes of the law. Mr. Whitmore spared no expense, hiring a team of high-profile attorneys who painted Ryan as an underqualified, financially unstable man incapable of providing for 5 children. Flyers appeared around town, questioning Ryan's fitness as a parent, while news outlets sensationalized the story, turning it into a media circus. But Ryan refused to let intimidation break him. With the help of their compassionate lawyer, Ms. Harper, they prepared for court by gathering evidence of the loving home Ryan had built for the triplets. Neighbors testified about the joy and laughter emanating from his apartment. Teachers praised the girls' academic progress since moving in with Ryan, and even Jake spoke passionately about how much the triplets meant to their family. Meanwhile, Ryan worked tirelessly to counter every accusation leveled against him, determined to prove that love, not money, defined true parenthood. One evening, as Ryan sat at the kitchen table reviewing documents with Ms. Harper, the kids gathered around, sensing the gravity of the situation. Sophia looked up at him with wide eyes. "What if we lose, Ryan? What if we have to go live with him?" Ryan knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're not going to lose. I promised you that, didn't I? And I don't make promises I can't keep." "But what if he wins?" Emma asked softly, clutching her sister's hand. "He has so much money." "It doesn't matter how much money he has," Ryan replied firmly. "What matters is where your heart feels safe, and where people truly care about you. That's here with us." His words seemed to calm them, but the uncertainty lingered in the air. The next morning, Ryan stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie, a borrowed suit hanging awkwardly on his lean frame. Jake handed him a small folded piece of paper. "For luck," he said, smiling shyly. Inside was a drawing of their family holding hands beneath a rainbow, with the words, "We believe in you, Dad," scrawled across the top. Ryan's throat tightened as he tucked it into his pocket, vowing to give everything he had for these kids. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Reporters lined the benches, cameras flashing as Ryan, the triplets, and Ms. Harper took their seats. Across the aisle, Mr. Whitmore sat flanked by his entourage of polished lawyers, exuding arrogance and confidence. When the judge called the proceedings to order, the room fell silent. Ms. Harper began by presenting their case, emphasizing the stability and love Ryan provided despite financial challenges. She highlighted testimonials from neighbors, teachers, and friends, painting a vivid picture of a man who sacrificed everything to ensure the triplets had a safe, nurturing home. Then she called Ryan to the stand. As Ryan recounted the night he found the girls begging outside Whitmore's estate, his voice cracked with emotion. "I didn't know them then," he admitted, glancing at the triplets seated behind him. "But when I saw how scared they were, how desperate they were for someone to care, I couldn't walk away. These kids needed a family, and I told myself I'd do whatever it takes to give them one." Turning to face the judge, he continued, his tone steady but heartfelt. "Money can buy a lot of things, a big house, fancy clothes, private schools, but it can't buy love. Can't teach you how to trust again after being abandoned. And it can't replace the bond we've built together. The late-night talks, the laughter, the moments that make us a family. I may not have much, Your Honor, but I have enough to give them something far more valuable than wealth. A place where they belong." The courtroom was silent as Ryan stepped down, returning to his seat. The triplets reached out to hold his hands, their eyes glistening with tears. Mr. Whitmore's lawyers countered with arguments about financial security and long-term stability, portraying Ryan's modest lifestyle as inadequate. But when Whitmore himself took the stand, his cold demeanor and dismissive attitude undermined his claims of wanting to do right by the girls. Under cross-examination, Ms. Harper exposed inconsistencies in his testimony, revealing his true motives: public image repair rather than genuine concern for the triplets. When closing arguments concluded, the judge announced that a decision would be made within 48 hours. For Ryan and the kids, those 2 days felt like an eternity. They waited anxiously at home, avoiding reporters camped outside their door and clinging to each other for comfort. Finally, the verdict arrived. Standing once again in the courtroom, Ryan held his breath as the judge delivered her ruling. "After careful consideration of all evidence presented," she began, "this court finds that the best interests of Sophia, Lily, and Emma are served by remaining in the care of Ryan Carter. Their bond with him, and with Jacob, is undeniable, rooted in love, trust, and mutual respect. Financial resources, while important, cannot substitute for the emotional foundation this family has established." Cheers erupted from Ryan's supporters in the gallery as Whitmore stormed out, visibly livid. Ryan sank into his chair, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. The triplets rushed to hug him, sobbing with joy. "We did it," Sophia whispered. "We're staying." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, eager for sound bites. But Ryan simply wrapped his arms around the kids, shielding them from prying eyes. Friends and neighbors cheered as they made their way back to the car, celebrating the victory not just for Ryan and the triplets, but for love itself. That night, back at home, the family gathered around the dinner table for a celebratory meal. Laughter filled the air as Jake raised his glass of juice in a toast. "To our family," he declared proudly. "Forever and always." "Forever and always," the others echoed, clinking glasses and sealing their unbreakable bond. In the weeks following the court's decision, life began to settle into a new rhythm for Ryan and his expanded family. The media circus died down, replaced by local headlines celebrating their victory as a testament to resilience and unity. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had followed their story rallied around them, ensuring they never felt alone again. Donations poured in through crowdfunding campaigns, allowing Ryan to make long overdue improvements to their home. A larger apartment with enough bedrooms for everyone, new furniture, and essentials that eased the daily grind. But it wasn't just material things that changed. It was the spirit of gratitude and connection that permeated every corner of their lives. Ryan no longer skipped meals or wore worn-out clothes. Instead, he focused on nurturing the bond they'd fought so hard to protect. The triplets thrived under his guidance, excelling in school and embracing hobbies they'd never had time for before. Sophia discovered a love for painting, Lily became an avid reader, and Emma joined a community soccer team, scoring her first goal with Jake cheering loudly from the sidelines. One Saturday morning, as they worked together in the backyard garden, Ryan paused to watch the kids play. Jake helped Emma chase butterflies while Sophia sketched the scene in her notebook. It struck him then how far they'd come. from a makeshift family born out of desperation to a united front built on love and trust. He knelt beside Lily, who was carefully planting sunflower seeds. "You think these will grow tall this year?" he asked, brushing dirt from his hands. "I hope so," she replied, beaming. "They're like us, stronger than they look." Her words stayed with him throughout the day, a reminder of the strength they'd found in each other. The community's support didn't end with donations. Neighbors invited them over for barbecues. Teachers went above and beyond to ensure the kids felt supported at school, and local businesses offered discounts or free services whenever possible. One evening, Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman who had once brought them a casserole, stopped by with a photo album filled with snapshots of their journey. "I thought you might want something to remember all this by," she said, flipping through pages of candid moments. The kids playing in the park, Ryan fixing bikes in the driveway, Jake teaching Emma how to ride hers without training wheels. Ryan smiled, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. T. This means more than you know." "It's not me you should thank," she replied gently. "It's yourselves, for showing everyone what real family looks like." As the years passed, the lessons they'd learned during those challenging times shaped who they became. Jake grew into a compassionate young man, often volunteering at shelters and mentoring younger kids in the neighborhood. The triplets blossomed into confident teenagers, each pursuing passions fueled by the stability and encouragement Ryan had provided. And Ryan, he finally allowed himself to dream again, not just of survival but of thriving. He started a small nonprofit organization aimed at helping struggling families stay together, inspired by the kindness shown to them during their darkest days. "If one person can change the world for 5 kids," he told a reporter during a rare interview, "imagine what a whole community can do." On the anniversary of the custody battle's resolution, the family gathered in their now spacious backyard for a quiet celebration. Fireflies danced in the twilight as they roasted marshmallows over a crackling fire pit. Sophia held up her phone, capturing a selfie of all 6 of them smiling beneath the stars. "To forever and always," she said, echoing Jake's toast from years ago. "To forever and always," they chorused, laughter ringing out into the night. Ryan leaned back in his chair, watching the flames flicker against the darkness. His gaze drifted from face to face, from Jake's lopsided grin to the triplet girls' radiant smiles, and he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They weren't perfect, and life still had its challenges, but they faced them together, as a team, as a family. For Ryan, that was everything. Money couldn't buy happiness, security, or love, but it could amplify the joy of knowing you'd done the right thing, no matter the cost. As the fire burned low and the kids drifted off to bed, he whispered a silent thank you to Claire, wherever she was. She'd given him Jake. But the triplets? They were heaven-sent, proof that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest blessings.